Welcome, and I'm going to describe some final mixing concepts here for your assignment 3, mixing. So some more advanced stuff here. Last time we talked about submixes, and we can just review a little bit of that. So I've got all my drums here, going out the drum bus into the drum bus auxiliary track right here, okay? And I repeated the color code and send all my tracks out the submixes, right? So let's talk about reverb. Let's talk about reverb first and the idea of parallel processing. So of course you could slap a reverb plugin straight on the track, but that's not parallel processing. Parallel processing is the side-by-side effect of mixing reverb on a separate auxiliary track, such as this on bus 9 and 10, and I have sent the rim, this track right here, to that. I've also sent the keyboards or the guitar bus over there, and let's bring that in here. Right, so you can hear that mixing in there a little bit. Let me get to that track here. So the idea of parallel then is that it's side by side. So I have a completely dry signal here of the rim, and then I can blend in the reverb as needed, right? So that's parallel, and let's just follow that signal processing. So I'm using a send on a bus path of 9, 10 right here. And this is the send level. I'm sending pretty much a full signal of that rim. And I'm patching it in here on this fader, on this auxiliary track called Verb with a reverb plugin on here. So I'm using a reverb plugin. It doesn't really matter whichever reverb you guys want to use. It's totally cool. And I just passing it through there, pass it to the reverb, and I blend in the reverb in parallel. So that's how the parallel is set up. And when you listen to it in the context of the entire session, it really adds a lot. So I'm going to solo it with and without the reverb. And in.
Run, run, run.
Out. In. So it really adds a lot of just kind of ambience and feel, especially for reggae, which has a lot of reverb on it. My levels are a little bit wild there. Okay, cool. Let us now, I'm going to talk about parallel compression on the drums. So parallel processing, again, side by side. I've got the dry drums here coming out this drum bus right here. Drum bus. Right? And then side by side, I am bussing over on bus 7 and 8 a little bit of the kick, the rim, and the snare up. And I had the overheads, but I didn't like the sound in them. The overheads here actually had a lot of harsh high end, and I was EQing out the high end because I heard just kind of some harshness there, and I didn't want to include that in the bus. But I'm doing the kick, the rim, and the snare in my parallel drum bus. So this is, again, parallel, side by side, right? I'm not compressing the drums on their own. I could, but I'm blending in some compression there as well. So let's listen to that. That's the dry drums, and here's with the parallel compression. I'll just like to do this on the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you could hear that, it really fattens up the drums. We blend in a little bit of the compressed drum signal. And let's see if I can hear that on its own. And I'm going to dial this in here. So might even go to a more extreme type of compression. So you do drive the input here to get the gain reduction there. So you want to have that needle bouncing. This is an 1176 style compressor, or the BF76 you guys probably have in Pro Tools. I'm just getting kind of more hefty, a beefy sound, really fast attack. And lots of compression here. And it's not even much signal, but when I blend that in, when I blend that in with the regular drum set with the compressed signal, it has more heft and more weight. It's a real modern sound. So that's the idea of parallel. I'm blending in the parallel compressed signal with the dry drum. So all the drums, again, I'm just reviewing here, all of my drum tracks are going out the drum bus here. And see how I did that in the previous video? Patched it in here, they're all coming through. Here's the dry drums. No effects. I'm taking a little bit of the kick, the rim, or the snare, and I'm blending that in, and I'm compressing it, right? And I could go even more extreme with this. You could add a little bit of saturation. So you could add a distortion, like something like Sans Amp, I believe you guys have. But let's just do, it's just like a distortion plugin. Here's the Devil Lock. It's like another compressor. That's a little bit hefty with the level there. But it's really compressed and really distorted, but when you blend that in with the original one, it sounds really nice. It sounds like more heft, more weight, more modern, right? So that's parallel compression. Cool. Parallel compression, parallel reverb, that's what I mean by that. So EQ, I don't have much to say. EQ just takes a little time to learn how to use. So for example, I heard these overheads here, and I just hear a it's like 10 to 8K, and if you look at this, you can see it really bouncing here. There's a lot of energy here. I can just hear that, so I had to attenuate that quite a bit, actually. It just didn't sound like a natural hi-hat to me. It was just a little bit too intense. That's why I also didn't put it in the parallel compression bus. So, what was my solution there? I just added, that's too much. I just pulled back that high frequency because just by ear. And with EQing, these are some things that, you know, you learn over time. You just kind of memorize the different timbres of different instruments. So here's what I did with the kick drum. I pulled out the low mids, which is what I usually do. Right? So it sounded really boxy there. I just kind of boosted, and then I cut. So I cruised around. Just sounds really boxy there, and then I would just reverse the gain. And here, without this EQ in, without this low shelf, I just want a little bit more fatness there. Right? It's a pretty good kick recording. So after a while, you just kind of learn these things. I got to manage my levels here a little bit more and bring down the overall bus. I can just do that really quickly. And another quick tip about how I managed the levels here. The levels were super hot in this. So what I did, for example, I selected all the drums. Let me just select all the drums here, like that. And then I just held down Option, and I brought down all the levels of the drums. So let's bring it down a few more dB. That's so much so that I have got to bring down the bass now. The bass is really hot there. So I highlight the track, go over here, and let's bring this bass down, I don't know, a few dB. Bring down the guitar here a little bit. So I'm just getting more headroom. I'm managing the overall gain structure. Okay. So EQ, I don't have much to say. I would experiment with a Pultec style EQ if you guys have that. But yeah, try that. Try some EQ. Just use your ears there. And I made some other EQ videos in the other class. You could check that out. But generally, cut more frequencies than you add. So you want to chop away the frequencies you don't need on instruments rather than just boosting everything. Let's talk briefly about setting some markers here and how that's super important for mixing. So I would first set a marker, probably that first downbeat. I would just call this intro maybe, right? But I liked my markers to be incredibly precise, right? And so I'm gonna be in slip mode here because there's not really a grid, but and you could even have it on the very downbeat, like which is right there in that transient. See, I'm just dragging it right to that transient. right? And I'm just gonna listen to the song. It looks like something happens right here. And again, I can hit enter on the number pad to set a marker. And 3.
Run, run, run.
We call this.
Babylon a go.
Sounds like a chorus to me. So again, I'm gonna go really precise and look usually for the first kick transient.
Run, run.
And it's actually right here, right there, boom. And there's a reason why this is so precise, because I'm going to show you a little technique here. So I would set all my markers here, so on and so forth, to set these markers.
Babylon a go come.
And I can advance the cursor by hitting the down arrow.
Run, run,
It's still the chorus here.
him run.
I'll set one more marker here.
Wicked man a go run.
4.
Run, run, run.
Still the chorus, just a long chorus. Let's advance
Babylon.
the chorus here a little bit.
Coming to take
Ooh, there we go.
Babylon.
2, 3, 4.
Coming to take it. Ooh, take it to
So there is another change right here, right? And let's zoom in on that kick transient.
come.
So I want to get super precise. Right there. There we go. And make sure all the transients line up right before that. The reason for that is I like to use the marker window, which is Command 5 here. Went up on a different screen here. So Command 5 on the number pad will bring up that window, and I can go right to the chorus,
Run, run.
right to the verse,
Coming.
right? And I can also do something else. I can click the chorus, click the verse with Shift Select, and I can select between the tracks. Then I can go up and down my tracks. I'm using P and semicolon with keyboard focus on, this little keyboard focus on. I'm using P and semicolon, and I like to select between my tracks here and just listen.
Run, run, run. Babylon a go come.
And let's say maybe I took too much of the drums down. So what I can do then is Shift Select with the P and semicolon, and I can just raise all these up a few dB.
Run, run, run.
Right? So I'd like to make my, let's undo that. I also like the key command, Control Shift up down. So I can make adjustments to several tracks at once.
Run, run.
That's pretty good.
Babylon a go come.
And let's say that reverb, let's say the reverb's a bit too much. The reverb is right here. I'm going to take my reverb down a little bit.
Run, run, run.
There we go. That's more moderate, right? So I can mix sectionally between markers. Again, let me review that again. I would select the first marker, hold down Shift, go to the second marker, and by using P and semicolon, I can select whatever tracks I want. I can do clip gain. Clip gain is Control Shift up down, or just drag it with your mouse right there. I can adjust the level of my reverb buses, of regular buses, of submixes sectionally. That's why it's super important to get a very precise to the transient level selection. So I know I'm right on the downbeat of the chorus with the marker, right on the downbeat of the verse, right? That's good stuff. So I want you to outline the entire song form with this and experiment with selecting between the song section markers, going up and down, and changing the volume levels, changing the clip gain or the volume automation, changing the pan by section. It's a really fun mixing technique that I kind of discovered on my own, right? That is one of the requirements here. So set markers on the downbeat. So if I could bring up the assignment here for you guys, check it out. So I'm doing this right here. I'm setting markers perfectly in the downbeat of the music, and I'm mixing automation changes according to my markers. That's a great technique. I want you guys to experiment with that. We also explored parallel compression. You can review my video for that. And we did parallel reverb, right? So just getting a little bit more advanced with the mixing here with this assignment. Also, you can set up in mixing You don't always have to use one reverb. So I'm using one reverb here for my drums. And I'm using a separate reverb here for my vox. Right? And without the reverb, it sounds kind of lame, actually. Right? Put that back in. And I'm compressing my vocals here. Here's an optical compressor. And so optical compressors, there's a million of them. You probably have it installed, the BF2A it's called. This is an optical compressor after the LA2A. Here's a Waves version of it. So look for the BF2A, it's the exact same thing. So super simple how I said this. I put on my vocal bus and I want to set my peak reduction so it's just the needles are bouncing ever so slightly, right? You don't want to overdo it because it doesn't, I'm compressing too much, right? So you want to bounce a few dB, just like that. And then this is your makeup gain. And I'm just mixing to taste here. Probably a little bit too much gain peak reduction there. A little bit too much reverb too. But you get my drift there, right? So that's a LA2A style compressor, BF2A you should have. And then here's a BF76, it's after 1176. And this I'm using for parallel draw. Oh, actually this is on the bass here. So let me explain this real quick. So I want the input will drive the gain reduction here. We want the needle just to bounce a little bit. That's probably a little bit too fat, but reggae has a really fat sound. And then I just change the output to taste, pretty much. It's really simple. And I like to mix in the context, so I want to hear the level of the bass with everything else. It looks like I have plenty of level there. So that's a little bit of parallel compression, experimenting with an 1176 style compressor, the LA2A style compressor, that most plug-in manufacturers have a model of this. I think that's enough to get you guys going and finish up this mixing assignment. And we'll discuss more of this in class. And you have to mix your other assignments. So have fun with this.